bitch. What the hell, man?
Podcast person doesn't start recording a podcast.
Yeah. What the fuck?
You literally have one job.
That was gold. No one's gonna ever know now how fucking good that was.
You
It's
literally
so
missed. We are now Tenacious D writing the song about the best song that they ever wrote. God damn it, Neil.
And intro. That's
do a
awesome.
tribute to it, I suppose.
It's a tribute to the intro.
Boom, 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 boom. That's the music, right? Perfectly matched.
What?
No.
Have you listened to the podcast?
Have you listened to the podcast, Jose? You know, the one you're on.
It's dangerously close to the Back to the Future theme tune.
When Ben did the music for us, back years ago, I said, "Can you make it sound like?" No, it's not that music. It's the Year of Love, but 25% less, so we don't get sued.
And my friend Phil did a very good job of that.
Oh, was it Phil?
Phil actually wrote the intro riff. I just added to it. So it was.
You just did the "We Needed Roads" at the end.
I did.
It's a small clap for Phil. Golf clap.
Well done, Phil.
Go.
Right, and now the podcast. Hi, and welcome to the We Need a Roads podcast, where once again, like a little dude-heavy version of the Avengers, I've assembled Ben.
It's me.
Jose.
Greetings, programs.
And David.
Why does Jose always do the weirdest thing?
It's because he's not prepared. He's not prepared. He just words fall into his brain and then out of his mouth.
No, that one, it's Tron. It's one of my favorite movies.
Greetings, program.
That was Tron? Okay.
That was Tron in your face, David.
Oh, yeah.
You've been troned. You've been troned by Jose.
As well. Yeah, well done. Well done, Jose. You win.
Guys, what have you been up to? It's been weeks. It's been months. It feels like years.
I've been enjoying this wonderful Florida weather.
Oh, shut
22
up.
degrees
Shut
Celsius,
up, Jose.
as you Brits say.
We should just mention that me, David, and Ben. Well, Ben is occasionally. Ben's an international man of mystery, so we're never not quite sure what country he's in.
Not mine.
On the run from. And we're generally in the UK. I'm in the UK, David's in the UK, Ben is on the run, and Jose is in Florida. So, yes, we're a full multinational podcast. Is that the word, multinational?
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Multinational.
Yeah, why not?
International.
That sounds good.
International.
Definitely covers a multitude of time zones.
A multitude of nationals.
When I say two, I mean two time zones.
So, Jose, you've been enjoying the weather. That is fascinating for our listeners. Ben, what have you been up to?
This and that, man, just taking it easy. Does anybody notice how January seemed to last for like 3 months, but we're already nearly at the end of February? That's like twisted my melon, man. I can't get over that.
You know, it's funny. It's the opposite for me.
It's the opposite.
January just flew by, and then February lasted a while.
Oh,
I've never heard the saying "twisted my melon" before.
haven't you?
I really like it.
The Happy
I
Mondays?
want to use that.
I mean, seriously, it's like super 90s. So, giving my age away.
He was a baby. That's why he never heard it.
Melon, man.
How old is everybody here? I've never actually
very
known.
rude.
I want to know. You know
A
what?
gentleman
I'll
never
go
asks, and a
first.
lady never tells.
I'm 31.
Again?
Jose is like, I have no idea how old Jose is. He's just
Jose
like a
could
man
be in his
of
20s,
mystery.
he could be in his 50s. No one knows.
He does.
It could be anything.
He looks very ambiguous on his age. Like he could. I reckon you don't get carded as much as you should in the US. But also, I reckon that you got into a little bit of trouble for looking older than you did when you were younger.
No, I've always actually looked quite young. And
so you're 75.
I'm actually 75. Yes.
When I previously worked with Jose, he came on fully shaven once, and then by mid-contract,
head to toe.
suddenly,
How'd you know?
head to toe.
Weird.
He was at Spar a lot. Spar girls tell all, man. And he then came out with highlights one day and a goatee.
Nice.
And from then onwards, he was known as Evil Jose.
Not my best moment.
We should post a picture of Evil Jose on Twitter.
Yes. I'll have to send something to Neil. A before and after, actually, but because I came on board fully shaven, innocent, and nice,
and then
I turned evil.
Got away with you.
And then you turned into a frosted tipped pirate.
I mean, when you're surrounded by a bunch of beautiful Steiners, you can't help it.
For the people who don't know the expression, Steiner is the name of the company that employs all the spa girls on board pretty much every cruise line worldwide.
Oh, I
And
thought he said stylers.
No, Steiners. I mean, the Steiners are
Steiners.
stylers. And, of course, there was
Yes.
the phrase, nothing finer than a Steiner.
Yes.
Oh.
Very much
Yeah.
well-deserved
How's
praise.
this product placement going so far? Are we doing well out
We
of it?
have not got any hair products at all. Because let's face it, the two of us, not saying who because you can't see our faces, don't need them.
David, what have you been up to?
I've been doing a bunch of baby things.
What?
Baby
Yay!
things are expensive, man.
Because,
Wow.
David, are you just like acting like a baby or is there actually context for that comment?
Oh, that's not happened on here yet. Oh yeah, me and my
No.
wife are having a baby.
Yay! Well done,
thank
buddy.
you. Yeah, I mean, you guys have known for like a month or so.
Don't pull back the curtain.
That was such a fake reaction. I loved it. But no,
That's Hollywood,
baby stuff's really expensive. Do you know how much like a pram or a stroller for you, Jose? They're like, that's a lot of money.
£700.
The one we were looking at was like 1,500 and something.
Oh,
Look, you can't put a price on your baby safety, man. What you scrimping for? Come on, stop fucking around.
It's just it's just a seat with wheels.
It's true.
Well,
put your kid in a supermarket trolley then.
my sister actually bought one that you could fit 2 kids and then turn it into a crib because it's basically just a big old box.
That sounds like a
So-
transformer.
Yes, honestly. I was
Michael
curious.
Bay's stroller.
Michael Bay's Trans-Strollathon.
That's just got weird. Let's get on with something important.
Hey, I think my baby's pretty important.
It's not the bullshit we were talking about. I mean, obviously your baby's important, but like the fucking
Yes.
shit we
That's a question we have for you, David. What is your baby's name going to be?
It's Bean at the
Ooh.
moment, and that's how it's staying. And Neil won't ruin it for me.
Bean Long.
No, Neil.
Bean Long.
That's funny if you know that David's last name is long.
And now all of my information has been stolen.
Oh no.
His identity is no longer
That
his.
Nigerian prince is definitely going to pay you back, man. I keep telling you. Well, gentlemen, I believe it is time to move on to news.
News.
And first up today, we're going to be talking the fantastic forecasting. Now, this was confirmed on Valentine's Day with an Instagram post by director Matt Shackman, and after what seems like years of speculation, we finally have the latest incarnation of Marvel's first family. Everyone's favourite dad and child escorter? Nope, that sounds weird.
You should go with it.
Pedro Pascal is Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, and once again, a hefty bonus to that man's agent. I think a few people were like, I can't really see it, but hey, give him some grey hair, it's going to be fine. Plus, Pedro is awesome in everything he appears in. Guys, what do you think?
This is great. This is the great idea. I mean, without getting into like too deep into to Pedro Pascal's like past roles, like the protective father figure of at least like Mandalorian and Last of Us, like putting him in the position of the dad of the MCU, like it's genius casting, absolutely fantastic.
I think it's also good because of his quote unquote daddy status online, where if you don't
He's not
know,
just the MCU's daddy, he is the internet's daddy. apparently.
yes,
Weird.
and I mean, I think a lot of people use clips from that Kingsman movie where he's got that suave personality, and I think because Pedro Pascal can do both, that is definitely a good choice. Definitely not something I was expecting, but I think ultimately it's one of those like, aha, yeah, that makes sense kind of moments.
And David.
Yeah, no, I'm super happy with it. I think Double P is like amazing, and literally everything he's
Double
done.
P.
What my question was going to be, why is he the dad of the MCU? I don't know, because I don't know that. Why is
Ben,
that?
want to take this one?
Well, it's like a term that's thrown around. You know how the president of the USA, his wife is always called the First Lady.
Uh-huh.
Then his family is called the First Family.
Yep.
Jose, stop me if I'm wrong. The Fantastic Four are the first family of Marvel. So
The reason they're the first family is there was the first comic book series by Stan Lee.
yeah,
In the 1960s.
Sorry, I jumped in because I didn't know how long you're going to get.
I like other people on this podcast being a nerd as well as me.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, like when Stanley and Jack Kirby like defected and started Marvel, the Fantastic Four was the first thing they put out, really, and ever since then they've been like the royalty
Okay.
almost.
So what you're saying is, like, Pedro Pascal's just become like George Washington.
Yes,
Pretty much.
essentially.
Yeah.
Wow,
Of
you're
the
only going to hear
MCU.
that on this podcast, but yeah.
More surprising from a UK podcast.
Mm.
Well, next up, that brings us to Vanessa Kirby, and she is Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. And Kirby is another woman whose star is very much on the rise at the minute. I think she most people knew her from like The Crown early on worldwide, and then she's had that great lead role in Napoleon recently, her turn as the White Widow in the Mission Impossible films. And she actually beat out, I mean, they were talking about Margot Robbie being the favourite at one point. But honestly, as much as I like Robbie, I think Kirby comes with a lot less star baggage, if that makes sense. She's known, but not super like she's known as a really good actress, but she's not a massive celebrity as well.
I say she's bubbling under. Like right now, she's simmering away, like doing her own thing, like really make a name for herself. And this is the good thing that's going to like push her into the stratosphere of Hollywood, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is where she boils over for sure.
Nice.
Bubbling Kirby everywhere.
Yeah, I think she has a great look. And the most recent stint on Mission Impossible, where she played someone who was pretending to be her, that showed some
really
flexibility.
funny, wasn't
Mm.
Yeah, because otherwise I wouldn't have like, can she be a little more fun? But yeah, that was a really good example of just playing outside what you normally do.
Well, next up, we have Cousin Thing with Ebon Boss Bacharach as Ben Grimm. And again, a man who is really having a moment. Like, he's been in Andor and most notably as Richie in The Bear. And I think he was probably a lot of people's favourite character by the end of season 2 of The Bear. And this is such a great casting choice. I mean, you look at the guy and he's like big and he's angry a lot of the time. He's just Ben Grimm already. Like, there is no Ebon Boss Bacharach. They've just cast Ben Grimm.
Yeah.
Ben Grimm plays Richie in The Bear. That's what I'm saying.
Again, that's just genius casting, isn't it? It's like you watch him in The Bear and how he goes from 0 to 100, and it's like that is the thing. That is, he just gets super angry and but he's also got a big heart, and that's the thing that that's the thing that makes the thing, right? He's got this giant heart that we wants to protect everybody, and there are instances in the comic where he gets the opportunity to turn back into Ben Grimm, but at the expense of one of the other characters' lives or something else, and he never does. He stays the thing. I think he can put that across.
Yeah, I think again this is another casting where I never would have expected him, but when you mentioned his name, I'm like, yeah, it immediately makes sense. So I think he has a great personality for it. I think the only thing that really threw me off really was a lot of people were expecting an actually Jewish actor. And so I don't think he is Jewish himself, but hopefully they still kind of pay respects to that character in that way.
And David, your thoughts on Cousin Thing?
I've only ever seen him, I think, in The Bear, and I've only watched the first season of The Bear, so I've not got to that point.
You're fired, David. You're fired.
I've not got to that point where he's my favourite character.
You still hate him.
So
well, good.
I hate you, David. I think
it's about time that someone had we stopped gushing about this, because we're all so on board at the moment. I like that David's not seen that and he's a little bit cautious.
Well, and also I think with the Thing, the aesthetic of him is just as big as the character is. But how are they going to make him as an aesthetic? How are they going to make the Thing look?
Oh,
CG
he's
in
for
costume
sure.
and everything like that.
After I saw the end credits from the Marvels with Beast being
spoiler,
full CG.
Jose. No.
Did anyone really watch that movie?
I watched it again.
I did. I watched it.
Quite a few people are watching it now. It's on Disney Plus, to be fair.
True.
People it wasn't as bad as everyone said, which is what we all said at the time.
Exactly.
It's fine. So we need a rose metric of something that is okay.
It's fine. But yeah, I think with the Beast in previous movies, he was a practical effects character, but in that end credit scene, he was all CG. So you got to wonder, are they going to go full CG with certain characters, or are they going to try to go practical?
The last person we have to mention, Eddie Munson, is the Human Torch. Yep, Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things is going to flame on as our new Human Torch. And despite being 30 and working quite constantly throughout his career, he's only really kind of broken through in the last year or two as Eddie Munson in the last series of Stranger Things. Well, he's going to have a big year before Fantastic Four comes out. So it looks like he's going to be one of the co-villains in Gladiator 2 later this year. Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't seen him in a lot. I've only seen him in Stranger Things with an American accent. So we know he can do the American accent. Because if anyone doesn't know, Joseph Quinn is English.
What?
Oh, by the way, Vanessa Kirby is English as well, Jose.
That one I knew.
Okay. Check it. So two of your first family are actually English again.
Wow.
Yeah, see, we might not be able to come back with weapons, but we've got half the royal family over there making TV shows, and now all your actors are going to be English. We'll get you guys. Don't you worry.
You're gonna infiltrate us.
We'll recolonize you.
Oh, I just got the half the royal family thing.
Oh,
There you go.
Why'd you bring that up, man?
Sorry, man. It's, just, like, it's in the social zeitgeist. It's always there. But yeah, I mean, so I like what you're saying about but the I've already forgotten the guy's name that plays
Joseph Quinn.
Because when I saw that it was Joseph Quinn who was cast, I had to go back and find out who he was. I was like, oh, he's that guy that blew up in Stranger Things. They killed off, and everybody was like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. But most of his work, where like he's shredding on guitar, he was surrounded by flames anyway, or in the upside down, and it was all like.
So that's casting.
It's a logical
director was like, yeah.
That's all we need.
But I think that guy could have written his own ticket. I think he was like literally at that point where he was just like, everybody was just throwing offers at him, and his agent was just like, wait, just fucking wait, play it out, see what comes. Like you don't have to say yes to everything. And he's gone Gladiator 2. Human Torch, boom, boom. He's like, cool, now I'm set for life. Wicked.
Yeah. Fair play, man. And like you say, he's been working constantly for years. It's only just recently that he's kind of got big. So
I'm really curious to see how he plays off the demeanor of Johnny Storm, because Johnny's almost borderline arrogant.
Oh no, he's a twat. He's like an arrogant asshole at the start.
Oh, he is completely. Okay, yeah. So I'm really curious to see how he plays that.
Yeah.
Because Chris Evans was really interestingly, I feel like he played it with a little bit of a cool demeanor where it wasn't annoying completely.
Oh no, he was a knob. But he was a good knob, if that makes sense.
Exactly. See? A likable knob.
David, what about your likable knob?
Like everybody else, I've only ever seen him in really Stranger Things. Although I take a little offense to Neil's. Oh, he's 30 and he's only just breaking through. You said like 30's really old.
Yes.
30's not old.
Look who we're talking about. We're all older than you.
There you go.
Yes.
Anyway, I've only and apparently he was in Game of Thrones. But I was expecting.
Season 7.
I think he must have really smashed the audition for this, because I can imagine there was a lot of people, because if no one's, he's only ever really done the one thing. I can imagine that the audition, he must have just been like, fucking.
No, Richie smashed the audition because he's a thing. He broke a table.
Very good.
Oh.
But I always imagined this character to be more like Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick or something like that exact sort of person.
I don't think we've seen enough of Joe Quinn yet to see that he can't do that. I mean, that's
what I'm saying.
It's perfect casting there. You like what you said there, David. Yeah, like Glenn Powell is actually who you think of when you think, new Human Torch. Yeah, he would be really good at it.
He's the mystery of the cast.
Do you think he'll have a massive glow up in terms of going to the gym and adding on muscle, or do you think they're just going to keep him as is and just let him be suave and style him up?
He doesn't need to be ripped. He needs to just be athletic, I think. I don't think he needs to worry about that.
And they just need him a good CGI suit, man.
A la Green Lantern?
Yeah, I was about to say
said that, everyone in the MCU basically has to go on the MCU diet, don't they? Remember, Kumail Nanjiani was everyone's like, wow, you're in the insane shape. And he's like, yeah, it's amazing when you have a Marvel crack team working with you every day for 2 years. You can do like this as well. And then everyone hated the Eternals as well. So there you go.
Also, Will Poulter, Guardians of the Galaxy.
The man who has to pull all this together is the director, and that is Matt Shakman. And I've actually been a fan of his for quite a few years because he's done so many amazing TV shows. He actually got his start, I think, on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And then since then, he's gone on to do episodes of Fargo, The Boys, Game of Thrones, and probably what got him his Fantastic Four gig is his work on, I think he was the main director for WandaVision.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. No, I trust all those shows, except for the 2 seasons of Game of Thrones.
Hey, what the fuck?
You mean the last
two, David.
The last two.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay, my bad.
That was
I missed that point.
He set it
Sorry.
up for you, David. You served the ball up. You were there to spike it down.
No, you know what? It's probably a good thing I didn't realise, because it'll just get me started.
We're going to do that at some point. We're doing that soon, David. You are apparently working on the plan for that.
Yeah, man. I got halfway. I'll go send it to you soon.
Excellent. Well, next up, you can't do a Fantastic Four film without having a villain. So who are we going to get? Is it going to be Doctor Doom or is it going to be Galactus? And who do we want to play those guys? Well, Doctor Doom, I think the obvious choice would be Adam Driver.
No.
Not obvious choice. All right.
Okay, no offense to Adam Driver, but Dr. Doom's supposed to be a formally, maybe / not formally, a handsome man. And I know Adam Driver can do brooding, but I don't know if I think he's.
You
the
just
most
say
handsome
Adam
man.
Driver's not handsome.
He did.
It's
Declared war.
subjective, man. I don't think he's that good looking.
He's
I think he's a good
fine looking dude. He's just fine looking.
He's better looking than the four of us
I
put
do
together.
him.
So, you know, like,
I do him. That's all.
He's
I've
got.
yeah, but you're easy.
He's got the Kylo Ren aura about him, but
Why is that?
I mean, why?
Why is that?
Why? Because he was Kylo Ren.
Oh.
But I mean, we want a classically attractive man to play Doctor Doom to kind of follow with the lore,
Glenn
because
Powell.
that's the whole reason he's.
Glenn Powell.
I mean, you know. One interesting fact that I did hear about is Ben Mendelsohn wanted to play Doctor Doom, and I think he's a.
I'm all about that.
I think he's a great actor, but I think he's too old for the because I feel like
he's
Doctor
fine.
Doom's
He's fine for
supposed-
like the grizzled or like you know, guy behind the mask like Doctor Doom. That would be great, but obviously he can't do it because he's already been cast as an MCU character and
a villain in Batman. He was
shit,
that. Yeah. It's like, do you feel in charge? That guy.
I don't think they're going to be doing Doctor Doom in this film because the rumor out there is that they've put an offer out for a character, an actor, to play Galactus. So it sounds like they're going to jump right in with Galactus. And apparently, the man who has been offered the role is also in one of the biggest films of this year. It's Javier Bardem from Dune 2.
what?
Okay.
That's amazing.
As Galactus.
Javier
You can see the
Bardem
giant
is
purple helmet on him right now.
glorious. I don't know if I could. I'd rather see him as Doctor Doom.
No.
He'd be another good Doctor Doom. I just like Galactus. You could almost like just CGI Galactus. You need someone with gravitas, so Javier Bardem like works. You need like a Josh Brolin Thanos type vibe.
Yes,
sure.
I agree with that.
Galactus
And the fact
is
they're literally in the same film at the minute.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man.
I mean, Javier Bardem does have that scary factor, like he was in No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, man.
But I don't know if he has a gravitas for Doctor Doom.
Oh, I don't know, man. Like, what about in the Bond movie? Like,
it was fine. He was more creepy than anything.
Yeah, but like that's great. That shows his range. If you can go from like psychopathic
Creepy
to creepy
to eating planets.
So yeah, like I think
No, we're talking about Doctor Doom, right?
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I swung back to Galactus, but
as Galactus, I feel like you can get away because he does have a good voice for it. I think he could be a good voice actor.
I got one more pick, right? If they went for young Doctor Doom, has anyone seen The Holdovers yet?
No.
There's a young actor in it called. He's only 21. His name's Dominic Sessa, and there was a bit in the BAFTAs when they cut to his reaction when someone else won an award for the film that he wasn't up for the award, but someone was, and he mockingly did this really angry face, and then was like, oh, he was joking, I think, but like he did this like cut to him, he's like. For everyone,
for those who are listening to Neil made a really funny face.
Hey, it was angry, Jose. You should be intimidated and scared.
Yes.
It
was
hilarious. And that's why I'm not an actor. But I think if you go young, he's really got. He looked at it, looked at the part. I was like, that kid could do it. That kid could be like your young Doctor Doom.
With the casting that we have, it has to be somewhere in the middle, because obviously Pedro Pascal is a little bit older. I think.
Well, it depends how they write Doctor Doom into, because he's got loads of different origin stories right in the comics.
Yes,
Hold on, we did start off by saying that it's most likely to be Galactus. So, like, if we go back to that, because the dynamic between Doctor Doom and Reed Richards is that they knew each other as well. There's like a history there. So Galactus is like a space entity that is the size of a planet. He's ridiculous. Or bigger. Yeah, or bigger. Like, it's
because he eats planets.
So there's a whole thing there. Like the actor that does that is going to be like in a studio just doing like CGI stuff. There's not going to be much of that actor actually on set. So it could be anybody. And whoever, like Javier Bardem, I think is the best of that bunch. I'd like to see them introduce someone like slightly unknown, like a stage actor that has gravitas or something. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but I'm always one for huge movies taking a chance on a smaller actor to give them that like leg up. And I'd love to see something like that.
Interesting.
I agree.
Well, last thing on Fantastic Four, I think, is that do we think it's going to be a period film set in the 1960s? Because we know Shackman can nail a superhero period piece after doing WandaVision, and eagle-eyed decipherers have noticed from that image that the issue of Time magazine that he's holding has President Lyndon B. Johnson on it, which they said places it around 1963. They said this would also tie in more with Johnny's original background as a test pilot. And honestly, the more I think about it, I like the idea. I think you can do a proper 60s origin Fantastic Four film, and then whatever happens to drag them into the current iteration of the MCU, be it Deadpool that gets us there, or whatever film hits the big reset button on it. I think it's clever. Do a film, set them up, enjoy the characters, and then you take them from their world into something different. I think that's the way they're going to do it.
That's a really, really interesting take, because how do you fit like the Fantastic Four into an MCU where their characters they live in New York? So like the attack on New York in the first Avengers film, like why weren't the Fantastic Four there helping out? You've got to explain that stuff away, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is an interesting challenge, but that's a really good shout.
I think that's a great idea, and then hopefully they can execute it well, because then what's to stop them from doing the X-Men and Professor Xavier and Magneto and having them do the same thing? Because Magneto's heavily tied to the Holocaust, and so if he were still straight alive through this whole period, he'd be in like 90s, close to 100 if not. And how would you take care of that age situation if not through time travel again?
Because he's metal.
Okay.
But there's also the mutant element of it. They play on the mutant element of that, and they age slightly slower, and there's things like that. So there's lots of little get out of jail clauses there.
Yeah. And I'm also curious if they might overuse the whole different dimensions coming to one into our current dimension, or like alternate universes.
Yeah, so I sort of thought though they just used the multiversal thing to bring them into the storyline.
I think they almost want to kind of shy away from that now. I think that's what this big Marvel recalibration that's going on this year. So I think Deadpool will be the way they get there, I imagine.
And then I'll be like, right. I haven't watched any of it yet. I'm still trying to be as spoiler free as possible with that.
Everything we mentioned, mate, nothing was like shown of that in there. So
I don't want to hear the word Deadpool again until after I spoil it for everybody on this podcast the second I've seen it.
By the way, Ryan Reynolds plays Deadpool.
Why would you do that?
Also, the film is called Deadpool, and
don't.
No, I'll stop.
So,
any last points?
Yeah, like that. In that, just to link back to the '60s thing.
Yeah,
the robot in the picture on the Instagram release is Herbie, the guy that was like the little like house robot, like helper in, or like the
slave.
Not Claptrap.
He's like the R2D2 of the Fantastic Four, and like he wasn't necessarily in the 60s, but he was in it in the 70s. I've got it up here. The first appearance is A Monster Among Us, September 9th, 1978. So they have got, it looks like it might span generations. The Time magazine is of President Lyndon. But also the robot didn't turn up until the 70s, the late 70s. Okay. So like I get that they might try to be tying a lot of stuff together in that picture. I don't know.
Well, I asked for comments on the casting online, and of course our pal Stu over at Stu Old Order said it's really weird to see people suddenly turning on Pedro Pascal just because he's now associated with the cool thing to hate. I think he'll be great. I'm glad we aren't getting the Fantastic Four as young kids.
I'm surprised that there was any hate for him. I could see some people not agreeing, but hate is kind of interesting.
Yeah, everybody's got something miserable to say about it, though, don't they? You know,
yeah, miserable fucks.
Yeah.
Did you guys like the 2005 Fantastic Four?
Fantastic? No, I thought it was terrible.
No, that was a more recent one.
Yeah, I'd say they were fun. Like if you look back on it, you can actually enjoy them a little more now. I think because you're like, oh, it was a product of its time. Knowing that like it's not going anywhere, you could just be like, okay, that's what they did. I quite
enjoyed it. Like at the time, like it was up there with like in my like when how old would I have been? I'd have been 12. Oh, it was up there with like Spider-Man for me, like a film that I really enjoyed. As a I think
the Silver Surfer one was actually really fun to watch because he had really great powers, but
great responsibility.
I honestly don't remember how the second one ended, so it really didn't leave much of an impression on me.
Didn't they trail? Well, it's Galactus, wasn't it?
Yeah, Galactus was turning up, but Galactus was a big planet that was coming to eat their planet. Like it wasn't our planet even.
Brief sidebar that I never realised: Transformers the movie 1985-86
Omicron.
was just a rip-off of Galactus and the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, it was.
I never realised,
Oh.
because I watched that and loved that first, and I was like, when I finally caught up on like Galactus and the Fantastic Four, I was like, oh wait, this is Transformers. Oh no, wait, they stole it from them.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want someone to voice a man-eating planet, you get Orson fucking Welles, right?
Yeah. That
Find
was
the modern-day
cool.
equivalent of Orson Welles, and there you go. That's your voice for
George R.
Yeah.
Martin. I just saw David's eyes light up then.
I was just so confused by it. Like,
Look, we've talked almost as long about Fantastic Four as the half of the first 90s film. Anyway, we have a date. It is due out in July 2025, the same month as James Gunn's Superman Legacy. Who will win the superhero box office clash?
Fantastic Four, hands down, flat out. No.
Because they're both going to be awesome. So who wins? We do. By going for both.
Ah.
the audience.
Yes. And friendship across the multiverse of DC and Marvel. Next up, I want to talk the big film coming out very soon. Probably by the time this episode comes out, there will be a day or two before it's out on general release, and that film is Dune 2.
Dune.
Well, I was quiet because I didn't know if you were going to re-record you saying Dune 2 because it sounded like you said June 2, which made me think of the month.
June 2.
It's June 2, the second month.
Dune.
They
It's
should have
June
had
2.
it come out on June the 2nd. That would have made so
That
much
would have
sense.
been so confusing. Can you imagine that? Just regional
June 2,
accents
June
all over
2.
the place. You're going to see June on June. You're going to see June in June. June?
Oh, they missed
June.
the hashtags, didn't they? Double June. Well, look, the big thing coming out of the June premiere this past week in London, other than the fact that Zendaya dressed as sexy C-3PO, which was an interesting look.
Hey.
How do you cast Leah Seydoux, former Bond girl, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, The Pew, and then have secret Anya Taylor-Joy in the film as well?
Why would you keep her a secret?
Apparently, they wanted to keep her secret until the film actually came out. People were like, holy shit, she's in it. See,
but
the
why?
rumours are they wanted to keep her role secret, and you not know it until you watch the film. But apparently, someone was going to break the news online, so they just said, bring her to the premiere. And here you are, Space Nun. Today you are Space Nun.
But that's really cool because they're trying to keep the character secret. They're not trying to keep her secret. It's not like
Well, I think it was a bit of both. They didn't.
Well, I mean,
until the premiere, no one knew she was in the film.
Which is
She wasn't
brilliant.
listed
I
on
bet
the
she
end.
knew. I bet she had an
Oh,
idea.
She had a inkling, yeah.
She didn't know, Ben.
Oh my god, what a great actor!
She just thought she was chilling in the desert.
They just filmed her around the house and they CGI'd around her. Like,
And then
it was
threw
weird.
sand at her.
Like nanny cam footage. It got weird.
Do we know who she's playing?
No, and I don't want to know. She's a space nun, though, by the looks of things.
Space nuns.
She was
Space
harnessing her inner Bene Gesserit, or whatever they're called.
That's it. Yeah,
on
Benny
the,
Gesserit.
on the red carpet, or
Doesn't he live in Brooklyn?
what?
What?
Oh, terrible. Oh, it didn't work. Hey, so initial
Crickets.
crickets. Initial reaction comments, because the press screening has been recently in the UK. Everyone, like across the board, it's just universally positive. Everyone's calling it Villeneuve's best film. His Empire Strikes Back. Critics have actually been hailing Austin Butler's performance in it, who I guess won't be doing his Elvis accent for the first time in a few years. They're saying he's so good in it, and because everything I've seen him in, he's just basically been Elvis so far.
I watched a thing on I watched a behind the scenes thing on the Elvis movie, and they were talking to his voice coach, and they said like because he went so deep into it because he put so much effort into the voice. They said his voice,
He can't
his vocal
not
cords,
do it now.
yeah, have forever been changed by that movie, which means they said it's happened to several actors over the years, and he's just the most recent. They did name check a few people, and I completely forgot to write it down, but they said because of the effort and the amount of time he spent in that role. Because I watched that movie recently, and I genuinely thought it was Elvis acting against Tom Hanks. I thought he was that good in it. So,
Oh, wow.
so I see like what his voice coach says, and I sort of take that at face value. And it's interesting that he's gone that deep into that character that his voice is forever changed.
Yeah, that film. Yeah, it made Tom Hanks look terrible.
Did
Oh.
But yeah, I think
Yeah.
in fact, I think Tom Hanks was even up for the what's the opposite of an Oscar, which is like a joke prize, like a
Razzie.
Razzie. He was up for a Razzie, I
Razzie.
think. Tom Hanks.
Oh wow.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
really sad.
I think the best bit of marketing by that premiere for June 2 is Josh Brolin's most recent Instagram post. Now, I asked offline and I said, has anyone else read this? This is what he wrote on Instagram a couple of days ago. June 2 release is less than 2 weeks, all capitals. Robot Lady and Wonka fall in love. Then Elvis tries to fuck it all up while his bad dad floats in a pool of pond scum. The WWE dude from Guardians gets super pissed while Midsummer Hottie puts the eyes on Obi-Wan Kenobi, just after his mum gets caught taking LSD in a sandy bathroom. Chigurh still doesn't like the guy from the Goonies. I mean, who doesn't want to see all that on IMAX? The pandemic as we knew it is over. Strikes have come and gone. Fuck it. It's time to commune again and experience the amazing feeling of when the lights go down. You have your hand deep in your popcorn worm and Dune 2 consumes you.
That's
Do you-
amazing.
Well done.
Just
was
get
good.
Brolin to do all film descriptions from now on, right? That was fucking awesome.
Was that Brolin, or was that like his press person? I don't feel like Brolin would have a press person, but like
He does
that's
do a lot of poetry.
fucking funny. That's fucking good though, and I love the fact that you mentioned the weird popcorn buckets.
Oh,
I watched an interview. I watched an interview of the cast, like just doing the red carpet thing, and it was the first question this guy asked was like, "Oh, what do you think of the popcorn buckets?" And like Josh Brolin had never seen one, and he was just like, "What the fuck is that?" Basically, and then everybody was trying to be like really positive about it, being like, "Oh yeah," like just trying to ignore the fact that it looks like you're putting your hand into an anus and like drawing out. Like Zendaya's face was really like, she was like, "Oh my god, really?" And she was trying to find the positive in the moment, really thinking really fast, and she was like. And then she just went, "Yeah, but that's not going to work at all, is it? Because when you pull your hand out, the little teeth thing are going to knock all the popcorn kernels out of your hand." That was the most positive thing that you got out of the entire cast of people that were like, "This is a terrible fucking looking thing."
it's massive, mate. In the States, they literally Saturday Night Live did a sketch about it, didn't they? With Ayo Edeberry from The Bear, and it's a sketch called June Popcorn Bucket. You Google SNL June Popcorn Bucket.
I'm watching that later.
Yeah, they do exactly what you think they're going to do to it, man. I actually tweeted at Cineworld and said, I was like, "And we're getting this when at Cineworld?" And they haven't replied. They did reply, but there's been a mini pylon, and people were just like, "Well, we want this. This is a thing we want.
I buy
Bring
it.
it now.
You buy it, right?
Instant
two.
collector's item.
One for each hand."
100%. Yeah.
Get out of the fucking house more, Neil. What the fuck?
So we go from the sublime to the ridiculous, and unfortunately, it's a film that none of us have seen, and yet we really should have. One of us should have seen it, just so we can join in the discourse. But I feel like we can't let it escape from the zeitgeist before, and it's going to be gone really fucking quick from cinema.
Madame Web
Oh, okay.
is what we're going to talk about. And so to say that I'm on TikTok and I've seen people reacting to this movie, I think I'm enjoying that more than what would happen if I actually watched the movie. That's how bad it seems.
And the question I kind of want to pose to everyone from that is, Madame Web's are Madame Web's horrific reviews damaging the overall MCU? Because if you ask the average person in the street, "Oh, what's the difference between a Marvel Studios movie and a Sony produced Marvel movie?" Most people don't know. They they see Spider-Man, they see Venom, they see Madame Web, and they think it's an actual Marvel film. And there's a big delineation. You know, you haven't got Kevin Feige producing. You've got whatever the hell Sony are doing over there with these products. And I honestly, I think Dakota Johnson doesn't realise. I saw an interview. She goes, "So it's a Marvel film." I was like, "Is it though?" I don't think Marvel probably want you saying that. They probably want you saying, "Oh yeah, it's like a," but then she can't go. It's a Sony's Marvel. It's a Sony Spider-Man universe movie in co-production world
Without Spider-Man.
Without Spider-Man. Yeah.
Sort of.
So first up, Ed, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, this is a difficult question because I don't think that the average, like, I mean, 10 years ago, before the MCU really hotted up, I don't think people would have known the difference. But most people that I know do know the difference.
Yeah, I
they
agree.
they can tell the quality shift. Like, they know that Venom isn't part of the overall MCU, and they're very much aware. And I think some of that has to do with the success of the Spider-Verse movies, because that has the Sony badge with the Marvel thing after it. Like, there's a lot of talk in the press about how Spider-Man had to be like issued back, like lent back to Marvel to do the Avengers movies, and then the Homecoming and all those other Spider-Man, like Tom Holland movies.
Spider-Man, here he comes.
I think that the average person on the street, you might not be giving them enough credit to say that they don't realize, especially when there's dog shit out there like Morbius. That was
the other one I was going to mention. Yeah.
That might have the fucking Marvel like stamp on it, but only just so that they get their bucks from a character.
Actually, interestingly, Morbius and Madam Web are written by the same people.
Well,
Yeah.
they should all get in the
Not
bin.
surprising. Not surprising.
You'd think you'd have learnt from the first one, right?
Well,
Oh,
no,
I'm
maybe
getting
there's
a call.
probably like a handful of Sony executives that are just like, oh my god, did you see how good Morbius was? Like, it transcends genres. It's a bit of a vampire movie, but it's also got the comic book edge. And it was just like, to them, it was just like, oh yeah, we're gonna make bucks.
Well, look, I'm not going to name and shame the actual names of these writers, but their output, I don't know how they keep getting employed.
Is it
So
David
they've
and
got.
Dan?
It's not your two favourites, David. No, they have done Dracula Untold, The Last Witch Hunter, Gods of Egypt, Morbius, and Madam Web. How do you keep getting hired after that?
They just write what the executives think is cool. It's that whole like Superman movie that Kevin Smith was writing when the executive just wanted giant spiders in it, and Kevin Smith went.
Gods of Egypt was terrible, but it was quite fun. I felt like that was a fun film. It wasn't like it was. Yeah, but it was known to be dumb. Like, it probably wasn't intended to be dumb.
That was the best one of the ones that you just mentioned. Gods of Egypt was the one that was the best one. Also, it was mainly written years ago because it's like old like religious stories and stuff. So it's like it's not like it's even like it's like the Greek Iliad. It's like there's like, you know.
Yeah,
well,
but it also used
actually-
all white actors for Egyptian characters. So
Oh yeah, that was the
Yeah,
height of
come
Hollywood
on.
whitewashing, though, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah.
And ironically, it was directed by Alex Proyas, who did The Crow.
Oh,
what a
wow.
movie.
Looking
What
forward
a
to that
movie.
reboot. By the way, that'll be great.
Mm,
That
Yeah.
coming back. I'm quite
So-
looking forward to it.
I'd like to respond to this where I think maybe on average the casual viewers may not know the difference between a Marvel and Sony
Right.
movie,
Yeah.
but I think they can tell the difference between a good and a bad movie. And I think when they see the two sets of movies, like it's like, okay, this is a superhero movie. I didn't like it. But then they're gonna watch another superhero movie regardless because they're like, oh, maybe this one will be good, and they'll be like, oh, okay. I don't think it's gonna hurt the MCU, so to speak, but I think they're gonna know that it's just not good and not bad.
I was just going to say I agree with Ben. I don't think people are that dumb. I think
I don't
people
think
will
it's
know...
dumb. I just think it's a general awareness.
I use my father-in-law as a pretty good barometer with these things. He's very even he knows the difference between the two. I think what people won't know the difference is why it's separated. They won't know why certain characters are attached to one and others are attached to another.
Yeah.
That'll be something that people won't know, but they'll know
Most
that
people
they're
won't
two
care
different.
either as well.
But they'll know that they're two different things, and that they'll know. And I also think it's not going to affect the MCU's reputation, a Sony film being bad, because frankly, MCU are doing it on their own at the moment. But
They're
but
recalibrating, David.
But
They're
those films have
recalibrating.
been so bad as well. Like the Sony films, as in not the animation ones, have been so bad anyway for so long, even when Marvel was so popular. So I don't think it matters.
I would put to you that not one of the more recent MCU films that have been great, so your Quantum Manias, your, I don't know, Eternals, I would still rate them a million miles above any of the Sony produced things like Morbius, like Venom.
Venom above Venom.
Those Venom
Yeah,
movies
I'd
were
rate
probably
it
about,
above
the best thing they've done, but they still don't rate up there. But so here's the thing that someone just touched on that I don't think that caught me was I don't think that it's going to hurt the MCU. I think it's going to hurt superhero movies as
Overall.
a genre overall. I think that because there are people that don't care about whether a Marvel movie is a Marvel movie or it's a Sony product or whatever. They don't care about the difference between DC and Marvel and, or, you know, even all the other like the Vertigo comics and all the stuff that we see. If it's labeled comic book movie, some people are just going to go and take their kids to it and not really give a shit. So like I think that's where the brand of superhero movie gets weaker. It's like it's the overall genre of that suffers, not the individual parts that make it up.
But if the overall genre suffers, what studios are making? There's not many other studios that have the scope and the money to make big superhero movies, though, is there? So it is going to hit those two studios. It is going to hit DC and Warner Brothers, and it's going to hit Marvel.
Wasn't
not really
the
anyone else is making
Deadpool
them.
trailer? I know we didn't want to talk about Deadpool, but
Damn it.
wasn't that the most watched trailer of all time? There you go.
165 million.
So
views
based off
within a
that
day.
alone, I don't think it's affected it that much.
Yeah.
You know,
When I say weaken the brand, I mean weaken it like in
No, I know what you mean. I agree
yeah.
with what you're saying. Yeah, the overall, I feel like people have myself included. I'm getting massive superhero fatigue at the moment because it's
You've
all,
had
all
superhero
there
fatigue
is.
for about a year and a half, David.
Yeah, I've still got it.
It's a long-term problem.
Deadpool brought me back. That trailer was fucking amazing. We won't talk about it, but yeah.
This is going to be really difficult as it gets nearer and
I
nearer
know,
the
it's
release.
No,
so
we're just going to do an
hard,
episode without you.
Fair. But no, I think that yeah, the people that don't know enough or care enough about superhero movies are going to be like, it might put them off. But this is $1 billion industry now, and I don't think it's ever not going to be $1 billion industry. I don't think the damage that these movies are doing will impact it enough to stop the genre from like that the unstoppable force of it. But also, like, if let's put it this way, if one of these terrible fucking movies like Madam Web draw someone into, like, a kid into the movies, and they fall in love with comic books and they become the next great screenwriter or something, then more power to them. I think that's fucking awesome.
Do you know what, mate? You hit on a great point there, because I remember going to see the Marvels, and there was this young girl, maybe like 12, 13 there, Captain Marvel shirt on, sat between her parents, and she fucking loved that film.
There you go.
Nice.
The manager of the office building I work in, she went with one of her friends' kids to see it, and she loved it. So I think, yeah, because she's not on Twitter, she's not,
she's not a lore person.
Yeah, she's not into the geekery of it. She's like, oh yeah, my friend's daughter wants to go and see it, so we're going to go and see it tonight.
We are cursed by knowledge. That's all it is, Neil.
Cursed with art.
That's true.
That's all it is. And finally on this, I asked for comments, as I usually do. And a guy called Adrian Rickard, who sent us comments before, sent this one in. Undoubtedly damaging. I had to explain why this Marvel film wasn't a Marvel film like the other Marvel films that we have watched to my partner, especially when the story doesn't fit into what we know as the MCU, just shoehorned in badly. And let's be honest, plunging $80 million in this film and the other ones is a good investment, though. When in doing so, keeps your Spider-Man IP protected. I think they have to make a film every 5 years or so, and when their share of the profits makes it worthwhile when a Spider-Man film comes out. And I think that's kind of what we didn't really address head on there. Yeah, it's that kind of, when it comes to rights now, I think, I don't know the ins and outs of it at all, but the speculation is sometimes studios, to keep the rights, have to make a film within a certain amount of time. Yeah. And the best example is they made a Fantastic Four film in 1994 just to keep hold of the rights. Roger Corman directed it, and it was never released commercially anywhere. And it was literally just made as cheap as possible, so they kept hold of the rights because they produced the film.
Wow.
And I think that's what Adrian's saying there, is kind of, that's what Sony are doing with Spider-Man properties. As long as they keep releasing something, they keep the rights to it. And I bet Marvel and Kevin are just like, how the fuck do we get these rights back so we own everything again?
It's a lost leader then. That makes sense. Like, that's, yeah. Oh, God, that's brutal. But they just released Morbius, the crock of dog shit.
Yeah, but they're diluting. Yeah, but with everything that they're producing, they're also diluting their own product.
Yeah. So do better, Sony. Do better. Oh, last thing I want to mention on Madam Web is there is a clip on Twitter which, if it has not been edited around to just make it look worse than it originally is, because, it's Twitter. There's a clip of her running to save someone in a car, and the editing is terrible in it. And literally, as that's my day job, I saw it. I can only hope this was re-edited to just shit on the film on purpose, because the spatial awareness is absolutely off. So she comes to the left to go into this car to save someone, and then it cuts to the reverse, and it's her climbing in the other side of the car. So it looks like she's saving herself. It doesn't make... And when the average person is on Twitter is absolutely slagging off the film's editing...
have to find that.
It's out there, man. But when the average person is going, that doesn't make sense, why is she there? The editing's bad, then it must really be fucking bad. Because editing is the invisible art. If you do a good job editing, no one notices it. And the film flows really well, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's really good. And I don't know why. It's just good. And bad editing, you're like, this is weird and wrong, and it should be stopped. I think that's the end of news today, gentlemen.
Yes. I'm newsed out.
I'm newsed out. Any more news? No, there isn't. David, stop looking at clips. And next up, it's what we've been watching.
What are you watching?
David, what have you been watching since the last time we've done an episode?
I've been watching a lot of Delicious in Dungeon, which I'll be reviewing later. I've been watching a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, Down Under. Some of them Aussie girls doing some drag. Fucking talented people. And I've been watching a lot of Goosebumps on Disney Plus. That's been Not that great, but I've been watching it
Oh.
anyway. That's kind of it. And then, like football and stuff. Football takes up a lot of my life.
Has your viewing habits changed since your wife has fallen pregnant,
Oh,
Is there less murder and carnage in your daily watchings?
or is she just doubled down?
She loves her crime. She loves her crime.
Yeah, but I'm
So
asking
my
about I'm not asking about her hobbies. I'm asking about her TV. Love doing crime. I do.
Love a bit of crime.
No, it's not changed. It's not changed. If anything, it was slightly less of what I want to watch and more of what she wants to watch. Maybe just a tiny bit.
Get used to that for however many more months you've got, mate.
I think that changed when we got married. To be fair.
Yeah.
The second that ring went on, it was a bam.
And I'll be taking that remote off you as well. Ben, what have you been watching recently?
I'm watching quite a lot of things. I watched American Fiction recently, which I loved. I thought it was great. I've been watching True Detective, Night Country, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But the one thing that I was most excited about from our
Previous episode,
yes, was the Bad Batch. Bad Batch has started. I watched all 3 episodes that they dropped yesterday. I watched them all one after the other, and it was brilliant. Exactly what I was after. Like they don't rush their stories now, like with these with the animated stuff from Star Wars. They haven't jumped in and gone, all right, we need to fix this so that we can get on with the villain of the week thing. Like they're finishing the story, they're giving the story the time it needs, and it's actually really it's really good. I'm not going to drop any spoilers or anything, but the first 2 episodes are fantastic. And the third one introduces a character that you could probably see coming, but like I say, no spoilers. But yeah, it's just really well done, and so far it's lived up to the hype.
Were you going to mention Ted at all?
Yes, I have been watching Ted. Thank you for asking. I found that the first half of the season, because it's 10 episodes, the first half of the season wobbles a bit, struggles to find its feet. It hits at like episode 5 or 6. It finds its stride, and it from there just launches into hilariousness. So it's a series that's it's worth watching, but it's worth sticking with, because by the end of it, howling with laughter. First couple of episodes, wondering whether I'm going to even bother sticking with it.
Wow.
Perfect. Thanks for that, man.
And
that was
Jose,
a very
what you been-
sarcastic wow, Neil.
Wow.
That was wow.
Wow.
That was a 7 out of 10 on the Owen Wilson scale. Jose, what have you been watching?
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which I'll talk about later, but Masters of the Air. It's one of those shows that is fine, but it's been making me curious as to why it's fine. Because it kind of hits all the standard beats. It looks at the characters. It shows flying action, and it shows a little bit of a love interest here and there. But I think it's, in a way, it's glossing over everything too quickly is why I think I'm not as impressed. It almost just spreads things out too evenly, and I think we have to focus in on certain characters or certain situations more, because it does a good job with the flights of showing how kind of tight everything is. But I want to see it really affect these characters almost, because I know that that must have been something really like anxiety inducing to be in some of these cockpits and I, it's overall it's fine, but when you compare it to the fact that it's from the same creators of Band of Brothers,
so it doesn't hold up for you.
Is that what you're comparing it to? Then are you comparing it to Band of Brothers?
It most definitely is.
That's its peer. That's definitely. I mean, like, it's the Pacific Band of Brothers. Even Saving Private Ryan, it's almost exactly the same team.
Exactly. Yeah, and you would think that big stars, big names, lots of characters, and it
Elvis
just doesn't
is in
hit
it.
the same, right?
Creepy Barry.
Yeah, a Spielberg and a Law, for those who remember our comments earlier.
Nepo babies galore.
Yeah, although, I honestly think even some of the other characters are just really interesting, but I want to know more. And it's like some of these actors, obviously it's a war show, so it's like you can know that some of these characters are going to pass away, but it doesn't hit as much, It just really...
Because you haven't spent enough time with them?
Is it similar to like the Pacific, where I felt kind of like that with the Pacific after watching Band of Brothers?
I believe so. I don't think I watched the Pacific, so... But Band of Brothers, I think, is a gold standard. And this is just not quite there. I don't think it's bad. I think it's still something that I'm like, okay, I'll watch.
You know the word you're looking for, Jose?
It's just fine.
I've watched, I think, the first 3 episodes now, and I think Ben summed it up perfectly on the last one, where he said, "So you like the pew 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 pew, but you're not as big a fan of the yay." So yeah, that's where I am on it.
I don't know
It's
if
fine.
that made sense.
It didn't make sense when I said it last time,
understood
mate. I wouldn't worry
that.
about
I
it.
like the action and the air stuff. I think it's really one down. But then the kind of, I'm not as drawn into the characters so much on the ground. I'm just like,
I think that, like, I think the problem with what I've seen, I haven't seen the actual series, but what you're saying here is like the comparison is Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers. That is a journey where people who don't necessarily all fit together go on a journey and crystallize as a team, as a unit, as friends, as family. Do you get that same vibe from Master of the Air without giving away spoilers? Because their journey is literally getting in an aeroplane, flying to a thing, bombing it, and coming home, right?
So here's the thing. I'll tell you what. The first episode, they're already a unit, and they're going off to fight the war. Technically, Caleb Turner's character, Major John Egan, he's technically the one to go ahead of them, but they spend 15 minutes with his first flight, and then his team join him. So it's like, oh, why didn't you tell us what it was going to be like? But it was only 15 minutes into the show, so it's like he didn't have that much of a head start. In Band of Brothers, there's multiple episodes of them going just through boot camp. And in this, they're already pilots. They're already full-fledged.
So you're not as close to the characters.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is no time to stew, with some, like, there's a couple characters that to survive 2 or 3 episodes and then they're gone. But even with those 2 or 3 episodes, okay, I see there were moments that they bonded a little bit, but there was no real history with everyone.
Okay, so that's it's fine. It's a fine show.
Yeah, there are some that are starting to become favorites, but it's still very surface level.
Well, I watched an absolute metric shit ton of stuff. So I've pared it down to just a couple of things I'm going to mention here. One is one of the best things I've seen recently, and one is one of the most recent things I've seen recently. So on TV, Halo Season 2, which has started on Paramount Plus.
Oh,
and
is this the recent one recently?
This is the very recently one, yeah.
So not the best one recently, but the recent one recently.
The recent one recently.
Okay, cool.
The most recent one first.
Just on track, okay.
Has anyone here watched Halo Season 1?
Yes.
Or any of Halo?
I watched 3 episodes and I was okay.
I've watched all of Season 1 and I've seen the first episode of Season 2.
What do you think of it, Ben, overall?
It's fine.
It's fine. That's basically what I'm going to say. Yeah, it's fine. Now, for me, Halo's single biggest problem is that the Master Chief and his Spartans, when they're not on screen, I don't care about the other storylines. It's got a B and C storyline, and I just don't care about any of the other characters or what's going on because they're just badly written. I will say Paolo Schreiber as Master Chief and his team, they are really good. And at least in Season 1, we had Charlie Murphy's Mackie, a human working for the Covenant, which at least gave us some insight into the Covenant. So at least one of the B stories in Season 1, you got to see the baddest side of it as well, and their internal workings, which was kind of cool. But of course, with stuff that happened in Season 1, she's not around as much now. This season, I'm 3 episodes into Season 2, and I just couldn't care less about the other storylines. But I'm going to keep watching because the action scenes, of which there are sadly too few, are really superbly run. I mean, you think the opening attack in the first episode of the first series was fucking hardcore, man. Like, you got children getting taken apart by, like, the Covenant's...
A laser sword?
Laser sword. That's the word, Jose. Laser sword.
Lasers.
And that was the best episode. That had the best action in the series. I would say the opening scene of Season 2, where they have this amazing action scene set in the mist on a planet, was also really cool. And that's probably the best action scene they've done since Season 1. However, the main strand of Season 2 seems to be that there's going to be a Covenant attack coming on the planet where the Master Chief is at the minute, called Reach. And if you know your Halo lore, which I don't that much, I'm like a casual Halo video gamer, speculation seems to be this season is going to cover the fall of Reach, which apparently is one of the biggest and most brutal conflicts in the Human Covenant War, and that actually leads to the events of the first Halo game. So, like I say, fan speculation seems to think that this season is going to set up the fall of Reach, and it's going to take you to the events of the first game. I mean, if you've played the Halo games, all I'm really looking for to see on screen before it eventually gets cancelled, give me the Flood, you utter bastards. Give me the Flood. And the Arbiter. Flood and an Arbiter, and I'll be happy. That's all you need to do. Get rid of the B storylines, get rid of the C storylines, just have it be about the Spartans on missions each week. That's what I want. That's what the people want. Now, and it's fine.
I have to say, setting this before the game that actually changes the perspective on my opinion on if I want to watch a show now.
See, I didn't know it was set before the game until I read this stuff and researched for the episode. Because when season 1, I just thought they've taken bits they like and they're doing their own kind of mythology.
Yeah,
they're pulling bits and it's going to tell their own story. But apparently they are leading, and I think they are doing that, but they're also leading up to the events of the game. So,
weren't they creating Cortana or something in the first season?
She's around.
Or
Yeah,
something to do with Cortana.
Cortana is around now.
But was she with Chief?
Yeah,
we can't do spoilers on this, David. Just watch it.
I can't remember. I've watched the first season, but I still can't remember that part.
Anyway, moving on from a show that is fine to a movie that is absolutely fantastic. And I was finally able to catch Andrew Haig's romantic fantasy, All of Us Strangers, which I guess that's a genre here. It's a really kind of hard sell on the genre. And it's loosely based on a 1987 novel, Strangers, by Taichi Yamada. And it stars Andrew Scott, Paul Mescal, Jamie Bell, and Claire Foy. And I kind of have to explain a little bit about this so you know what is going on. So the basic premise is that Scott plays Adam, a lonely writer living in a seemingly empty tower block in London, until one night his drunken neighbour, played by Paul Mescal, Harry, bangs on the door and, asks him in for a drink. Adam's like, well, no, you're okay, mate. He kind of rebuffs his initial advances and he goes back to writing. He then decides to visit his childhood home, where bizarrely his parents are alive and the same age they were when they passed away. And he just kind of goes into this weird kind of, oh, hey, mum, hey, dad. And they're like, oh, hey, son. And you're like, but you're the same age. This is weird. And yet he then goes back to the hotel and, starts writing again. And then he starts developing a relationship with Harry. And the film kind of jumps between him going to visit his parents and reminiscing on stuff that happened in their past lives. And they're like, oh, well, what are you up to now? And all this kind of stuff. And it's weird because his parents kind of realise that they're almost not alive, if that makes sense. He's kind of having conversations with his parents that he didn't. It's just such a weird, ethereal film. You're like, what? From the opening scene, you're like, I'm not sure if what I'm seeing is real, is actually taking place. Is it actually all in his head because he's a writer? I immediately thought that when I started watching it. And it's one of these really clever things where you're kind of, when you're watching the film, you're trying to, it really made me think the whole way through. I was trying to guess what was going on. And it's got an ending. It's got a really good ending. Fantastic ending, sorry. And it doesn't answer all...
You didn't sell that bit there.
It's got an ending.
This film is an emotionally devastating masterpiece. And if you just get all the awards, you're going to win. I think I listened to an interview. I listened to a spoiler podcast with the director. And he said that growing up as a gay man in the 80s, it kind of really reflects what it was like for him. And just kind of making that parallel with what it's like in the modern day. And yeah, obviously there's still shit people have to deal with, but it isn't as bad as it was back then. And so his parents almost seem to be kind of trapped in the time of it. So when he's having a chat with his mum at one point, and she's like, well, isn't it dangerous and that? And he's like, well, no, it's nowhere near as bad as it was. And so you've kind of got all the scenes with his parents. They're kind of they kind of seem permanently trapped at the age they were when they passed away. And yet he's carrying on this relationship with this guy, Harry, but played by Mescal at the same time, which seems to be in the present. But you're never really quite sure where and when the film's taking place. It's kind of got this really floaty feel to it. I mean, it's an amazing film, man. It's really, really good. But overall, and again, the film's so much about loneliness and loss. And yes, it could be seen to be very depressing, but it's beautifully acted in it. It really has notes of hope in it. It's highly recommended. Whenever you get a chance to see this film, be prepared. I mean, people said about past lives being emotionally devastating.
Jojo Rabbit.
Oh,
Jojo Rabbit. Yeah, because I think this is more than Jojo Rabbit because...
God, that's a lot for me to hear because that film crippled me. It was brutal.
Well, it's because in Jojo Rabbit, that scene that you're referring to comes out of nowhere. We just don't expect it. And then it's like a sledgehammer to the gut when that happens. Yeah. This film, I think it's so hard to explain without really giving anything more away than I've given away. But safe to say, it's really up there. I don't know how Andrew Scott hasn't been nominated for Best Actor for it because he's amazing in it. He's so good in it.
Okay, so just to reiterate, it's All of Us Strangers.
All of Us Strangers, yeah.
I think
if you're a gay person watching this film, it's going to speak to you a lot more than obviously we are as straight guys watching it. But I think the relationship with the family as well. I think anyone who's lost a parent or had like difficult relationship with their parents. That side of it really got me. Like I haven't, but as I'm watching it, I'm just like, holy shit, those scenes are so powerful with Claire Foy and Jamie Bauer as parents. They are everyone. I mean, there's only basically 4 actors in the film.
Wow.
And only 2 locations, but it's so well done. I mean, this should be on a lot of people's like end of year list because it's that good.
Nice.
And I think it's going to be out on the streaming services really soon. So definitely give it a watch, man.
Was that not a review?
No, it kind of got a bit longer.
That was like,
it's like what you've been watching.
15 minutes.
It always sounds like that with Neil because he scripts his stuff, because he does his research and script stuff. It sounds more like a review than what I've been watching. But that's something we should all think about.
Yes, I should put more work into this.
I say think about, as if
it's like you're actually going to do it. And this brings us on to this episode's reviews.
Reviews.
David, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, hello there, boys. I have been watching this a new fantasy anime that has dropped on Netflix called Delicious in Dungeon. Which is okay. Let me sell it to you, boys.
Pitch me, David.
I know how much you like your D&D, Neil, and your fantasy genre.
I'm a fan.
I know you've never played D&D, but this is why I wanted to watch it, because it is basically a very D&D anime show, and the show begins. It's not really a spoiler because it's the first scene, with just a group of adventurers at the bottom of this dungeon, getting destroyed by a red dragon, with one of the characters' sisters just about to be eaten by the red dragon, teleports all the rest of them away. And it's the brothers' journey through the dungeon with a new gang trying to save her sister before she gets digested by this red dragon. That's the premise of the story.
Wow.
The issue with the show is that one of the issues the show has is it does kind of forget that is the story, because the main hook of the show is the fact that all of these monsters that they come across in this multi-layered level dungeon that they go through are all edible. Basically,
Right.
It's a really unique twist on classic D&D monsters and how they can include them in how they can fucking eat them. Basically,
Do they eat?
so how they can eat all of these? Oh yeah, man, they eat them.
Oh, there's some delicious monsters,
they
David.
create some
But they're dangerous.
beautiful
still.
dishes out of there. Oh yeah. So it's all about this multi-leveled dungeon, which gets progressively more dangerous, and the further down they get, as you'd expect. And yeah, with each episode, there's maybe 2 meals that they'll create out of these monsters that they'll come across. So that might be like, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's some classic Dungeons and Dragons monsters that you can think of. So like, what's a D&D monster that you guys can think of?
Gelatinous blob.
Yeah, so they might eat a gelatinous blob in the show, or they'll figure out a way of cooking it, and that's just like a unique way of like bringing these monsters and creating new lore for them, and how they'll work and how they'll operate, and then how they'll all come into this ecosystem, which is the dungeon, and then they'll start cooking them. It's based on a manga, which is I think 12...
Sound like a manga?
A manga? A manga.
A manga.
Is this live action, or is this a cartoon, or is
It's anime.
Jose, this would be horrific if it was live action.
Yeah, it would
It's actually Gordon Ramsay's new cooking show.
Yeah, it's based on is it a manga or manga? How do you say that?
Manga.
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 I always thought it was manga, which I didn't know about. But they're only 20 minutes, and I think if you like fantasy and you like Dungeons and Dragons, it's for you. I think it's really enjoyable. It's like a solid 7 out of 10 kind of show. It's one of those that you can just throw on and enjoy in the background whilst you're like sewing or something. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be fully engaged with it.
How long ago was this on your radar? Did you just come across it like randomly?
Yeah, I sort of just started watching it. Yeah, I saw it on.
How long's it been? How many seasons are there? How long's it been out?
So
Tell me
it's
everything.
literally there's 8 episodes, and the 20-minute episodes, and their 8th episode is dropped today. So I haven't finished it because there's 1 episode left.
Wait. So Netflix aren't releasing stuff in one go?
No, yeah, this is weekly.
Yeah, loads of streaming services started doing that. It's fucking infuriating.
Netflix doing it though is pretty.
Yeah,
unique.
they're like the only ones who don't generally do that.
Yeah, but it's weekly.
That has made me want to watch it even more than any other reason, David. Just a weird release pattern. just because.
Yeah.
There we
Well,
go.
it's solid 7 out of 10 show. It's quite enjoyable, and especially if
Nice.
you do like your lore or your Dungeons and Dragons.
Or
It's
you're
good.
sewing and knitting.
And
It's
you want
anything
something to put on in the background. That's cool. What's really weird about this is like I have no questions. Like I know very little about it. Like it sounds like something that it would be a hard sell for me to start watching originally, but I would probably get into it pretty quickly and be like, this is great. But it's going to take more than me finding it on Netflix to be brave enough to press play and get invested in it. But it does sound like, well, the things you're saying, it does sound like I'd really like it. So
The only one of the biggest flaws it has for me is that it can be quite childish at times.
oh, brilliant. I mean,
So-
Do you know who you're
it's
talking
quite-
to right now?
A child, yeah, it's quite like almost like it's for
Touche.
kids, not for adults.
I
you
see.
know? It's more maybe tailored towards like that Adventure Time kind of, but maybe
Mm.
not. Maybe a bit more than Adventure Time, as in that kind of fan
Culinary
based
time.
age group sort of
Culinary
thing.
monster time.
You know, the way you talk about it, it makes me think of how trying to explain Rick and Morty would sound insane, but it's a great show. Oh, it's a knockoff of Back to the Future where
but it's not. Doesn't reference
Doc.
Back to the Future whatsoever. Like,
yeah. It's not an uncle, it's a grandfather, and
It's
he
got to
creates
mention Back to the
portals.
Future at some point in that show.
Nah,
I mean, we
There's
have
got to
to
be
avoid
one
time
joke
travel.
somewhere.
They avoid time travel. They actually do make it's not time travel, it's just another dimension where the pizza place was still open at late at night. Do you remember that?
Jose,
No.
there are giant wormholes here, and you're going to fall down one if we start talking about Rick and Morty right now.
Ooh.
But Jose, what are you going to review for us this week?
I'm going to review Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Ben did the wonderful thing of watching it ahead of me and allowing me to view it in a different perspective than I was planning to. He put it in the scope of it's not necessarily a spy thriller, which it is, but it's more about a relationship, a marriage. And that has made all the difference in understanding that this is a drama about the couple, not necessarily just the spy job. And I
Nice.
thoroughly enjoy it. I'm 2 episodes away from finishing, but I after the first episode, I knew I enjoyed it. It's a slow burn for sure, especially the first episode. But if you like character dynamics, I think you're going to enjoy this show a lot. It stars Donald Glover and Maya Erskine, and they play John and Jane Smith as they're basically an international spy organization. But even they don't know much about what's going on. Throughout the show, they have missions and have perfectly placed cameos, which I enjoyed every one of them. And I'm just having a great time watching the show. Cool thing that to know is originally Phoebe Waller-Bridge was supposed to be part of the show, not only just acting, but also helping to produce. But she's stepped away for creative differences.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally just started watching it the other night. I thought, because I knew you guys were going to talk about it. I thought, I'll give it a go. And I started watching the first episode, and I fell asleep about 20 minutes in. And that wasn't a
That's
reflection on
never
the
a
show's...
good sign.
No, but it was late. It wasn't a reflection on the show's quality. But I didn't go back to it until a couple of nights ago. And I have done, I think, 6 episodes in the last 3 nights. And
Wow.
yeah, exactly what you said of what Ben said. Review it as a relationship drama, not a action show. And yeah, man, it just works so much better. Like, I love Donald Glover in it because I feel like he's just doing a slightly less funny version of Troy from Community. It's like if Troy went out and become a really cool spy. That's what I feel like it's like.
It's more like if Troy went out and became and learned how to be a spy from day one. It's not like he doesn't don't set people up with false hope here. He rolls he rolls into it not as a spy, and it's how he learns to become one pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when we can't give away spoilers. But that was one of the things that bummed me out about it. And I sort of not warned everybody, but I put it on the group chat for the We Needed Rose team, and I was like, look, I won't give anything away, but don't look at it as a spy show. Look at it as a relationship show that happens to be about spies, and it will flow much easier, and it's a better show that way. I think that my problem with it was that I expected something very different from it. I was sold on a spy show that never appeared.
Mm.
Do you think it's because they? I mean,
I think it's because Jeff Bezos is a bell end and Amazon made it badly.
Who is it?
Wow.
Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bellend. Do you think it's because they changed the central conceit and it doesn't really bear hardly any resemblance to the movie?
I don't think that should matter, because, like I said in our previous podcast, this was also based on
the TV show.
The TV show with Scott Bakula. Which I've now learned to say.
Yes, thank you.
Dracula.
I appreciate that.
The whole of America thanks me. But yeah, I think it's more like that one. So I think that the idea of, I mean, like the premise of the show, if you want to go into that like really quick without any spoilers,
I think so.
Is that there's a company taking on spies, and they pair spies together and then set them challenges, and it's like a 3 strikes and you're out system. So that's the basic premise of the whole show, is that you get paired with a partner who happens to who you marry, and then you start in the world of spying.
And you pose as Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
And Mrs. Smith, yeah. And you are employed by a company. You're not employed by governments, from what we can tell.
Yes.
Yeah. And well, what I like about, I think we can mention the big difference. If you're going in and expecting a kind of TV version of the film, you're not going to get that.
No.
And the biggest change they've made from the film, and I feel it's okay to give this away, is they don't know each other. So they are literally 2 complete strangers who have to pose as a married couple as part of their job.
So in the movie, they're 2 assassins that are in the same country doing opposite ends of a similar job, who as the job either goes right or wrong, meet each other in a cafe and become like a marriage of convenience to each other.
Oh, okay. So
so they're trying to hide their cover identities from each other whilst they're Mr. and Mrs. Smith at home being married.
Yeah.
And it's not until they get the notifications from their companies to kill each other that they realise that they're assassins.
Yeah. So
that's the major twist.
That's the major turn on it. And like you say, but I'm enjoying it more. I'm enjoying the developing of the relationship. I think the casting is really well done, because I mean, on paper you go, oh yeah, Phoebe Waller-Bridge would be brilliant, but I don't think her style would work as well with Glover, and it clearly didn't, because they didn't. They had obviously creative differences, and he wanted to take it one way, she wanted to take it a different way, and obviously he won out in the end in this instance. But I think Maya Erskine, she does a really good job with it, man. Like,
I don't.
You're not a fan yet.
Am I allowed to give an opinion, overall opinion?
Yeah, sure.
Basically, for me, this is a relationship show, and I do not buy them as I don't buy their chemistry. Don't buy. Well,
that's
chemistry.
The thing is, they don't work as a good couple, and that's the point of the show.
But they're paired as a couple. They're supposed to be. So
other things both that like happen. Korean barbecue.
Yeah, they're
everyone likes Korean barbecue.
So anyway, I don't buy the chemistry between those 2. And that to me is the glue that is gonna really pull this whole thing together for me. So I've seen it all, and I'm not going to spoil anything. But like I don't buy the chemistry, and that's the only problem that I have with the show.
And Jose, and how would you rate this fine show?
I really liked it. I understand that Ben has an issue with the couple's chemistry, and I think it's more about the fact that they are not a great pairing, but they do work together well. Ultimately.
That's what I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying the. It's almost got a procedural edge to it, each week each episode they get their assignment and they go on it and they learn a little bit more about each other and the relationship deepens a little bit as the show goes on. I love that you got some great guest stars who come out of nowhere in it. And again, like you say, a lot of it is relationship stuff. There's a scene where they're on a big mission and they're setting up for this big action scene, and then it cuts to them flying backwards from it straight away. And I was like, but no, that's also awesome, because the look on their faces after this mission was brilliant, and I'm really enjoying it. I am really enjoying it. I think I'd rate it slightly higher at the minute. So Jose, you haven't finished it. You've got 2 episodes, but what is your interim score out of 10?
Ooh, I'd say it's a solid 8, easily.
Ooh.
Easily.
I wouldn't go that high, and I think I enjoyed it more.
I mean, 10 is a perfect show, which The Bear I think is a great show.
The Bear is,
and so 8 is still a pretty solid show that I enjoy.
I feel like I feel like 8 is touching on greatness. I still
Yeah.
8 and 9 is touching on greatness. 10 is perfection.
Ooh.
I would say
think-
this is
I feel
a
like
6 to a 7.
Fine is 5, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm slightly more than fine, so I would say I'm a 6 at the minute.
If I'm maybe I think 7.5, 7.8, so it rounds up to 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Hey.
Right, Ben, what are you going to talk about?
So I have just come back from the movie theater, the cinema, after watching the Bob Marley biopic One Love. Don't. Okay, I'm gonna preface this right now. Not a single one of you is allowed to make any musical references because you are all tone deaf. Do not try and sing Bob Marley songs.
I mean,
don't make funny
I
jokes
make a
about.
damn fine Buffalo Soldier.
I'm pretty aware of my tone.
You make
deafness.
a fine buffalo sandwich, David, with your dungeon show.
No, but seriously, I really enjoyed this. Like, the synopsis is obviously it says the stuff you're going to read is going to say it's the story of how reggae icon Bob Marley overcame adversity and the journey behind his revolutionary music. Now, it isn't quite that. You don't follow like from like early Bob Marley going into how he learned to play guitar into like how he got into music. You start when he's already a megastar. So like it's actually a journey of part of his life. And it's a really important part of his life. Like I said, this is a no spoilers review, but it's a really important part of his life, and it showed me things I didn't know about him. It made me interested to find out a few more things about him. It made me feel bad that I haven't listened to Bob Marley in quite a long time because the music is truly outstanding. I would say that the overall vibe, when you've got biopics out there of people like Elton John with Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody with Queen or Freddie Mercury, or like, when you've got that as the gold standard, this does fall short of that gold standard, but it is in no way less of a movie. It is in no way less important. It is in no way less educational or emotional. It just didn't have the money behind it to make it that. So I think that this, like, the first act of it is a little bit like higgledy-piggledy for me. Like, it jumps around a little bit, and I had to really get my eye in. And luckily, I went with my girlfriend, who like she had a better understanding of that first act. And when we left the cinema, she kind of explained it to me a little bit. I asked about a thing, and she was like, "No, actually, it was this." So, like, yeah, even as a fan, like I got a little bit lost in it, but it is brilliantly told. Like it touches on lots of things from Bob Marley's career that you want to know about. Obviously, all the music, like, and it left me feeling really good. Like it left me like really like just buzzing about being excited to listen to Bob Marley's music again, and his overall message of of one love, and like all of us together can be better, which is something that I strive for in not only when I'm watching movies and TV and stuff. I love stuff like that, like Ted Lasso and stuff like that. I've been quite vocal about that. But in my life, I'm always trying to do better with other people and bring everybody together in my communities as much as I possibly can, which is falling far short of the Bob Marley ever, like it did. But if you enjoy a biopic, this is fantastic. The casting of Kingsley Ben-Adir as Bob
I was going to say, casting an English guy as a Jamaican and no one's kind of kicked off like, wait, isn't there and then loads of amazing Jamaican actors out there who could have played him?
Probably. But I
then the film wouldn't have got maybe as much money from people going, oh, we got and that a big star in it.
Yeah,
or a rising star, which he is, and they go, that's what they've obviously casted.
Isn't that big of a star?
He's rising star. He's a rising star, isn't he? I suppose.
I mean, he's done some pretty amazing things.
I
would say that arguably Lashana Lynch, who plays his wife Rita Marley, is a bigger star. I mean, the stuff that she's done with Captain Marvel and the Bond movie, just those two things alone sort of set her apart from almost everybody else in the cast, which includes James Norton. You get this feeling that like everybody in this project buys into the philosophy as well, because there's no one's trying to step on anybody else. There's none of this like There's none of this push and shove. Like, you know, you feel like some movies, like some actors have gone, I want more of a part in this. I want to do this. Everybody here in this movie, to me, felt like they were all pulling in the same direction, and because of that, it comes together beautifully at the end, and it just represents, I think, in a very true way what Bob Marley was about. So I would give this a good, solid, even better than solid, a 7 out of 10.
Wow.
That was a bit deflating, actually, that score. I think it
Yeah, I
was
was
a bit higher.
expecting
I think
nine.
Ben just has a higher record. I think Ben has a higher standard to adhere to.
Yeah,
I do have
yeah.
a higher standard. I mean, 7.5 isn't unfair. I will upgrade that to a 7.5.
You
but
guys are too willy-nilly with your
I
numbers.
feel like I should downgrade my Delicious in Dungeon to like a 6 after hearing everybody else's scores.
Yep, I think you should. We haven't got a metric that we go by officially, and we should
Other
really
than
consider that.
fine.
Fine is the first of our metrics.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome, man. I'm not going to see it only because I'm not really a big biopics guy, and I think I have to really be into like the person the film's about.
I guarantee you, if it comes up on streaming and you watch it, you won't be disappointed. However, if you're not going out of your way to watch biopics, then it's a tough sell for me to push that on you. But if you do see it up on streaming and you've got nothing else on, watch it and let me know what you think.
Okay, we'll do, man. So today, the film I want to talk about in a little bit more detail, and we're going to put our spoiler warnings out for this one because it's kind of hard to talk about this film without talking about how it happens. Everyone's making claw signs. So yes, that is indeed. We're going to talk Sean Durkin's The Iron Claw.
This is your spoiler alert.
A tragic biopic of the most famous wrestling family from Texas, the Von Erichs, who were superstars in the late 70s, early 80s in Texas. You have the patriarch, Fritz Von Erich, played menacingly by Holt McAnally, as a slightly bitter man who pushes all his sons to achieve a level of success in wrestling that he never did himself, and to bring the world title to the Von Erich family name. Zac Efron plays the eldest son, Kevin, who, while technically superb, lacks the flair and crowd connection to be a top star in the industry. Next is the Bears' Jeremy Allen White as Kerry, who's an aspiring Olympian, but his dreams are ruined when the US boycotted the 1980 Olympics, so he ends up joining the family business. English actor Harris Dickinson plays David, who is the best on the mic and has the most natural charisma, while youngest brother Mike, played by Stanley Simmons, is more interested in becoming a musician than a wrestler, much to his parents' chagrin. And honestly, if you watch the first hour of this film, you would think it's a film about a family of brothers who all love each other, get on really well, rarely fight amongst themselves, and they're all set for different measures of success in life. Well, let's just say the second half of this film involves a hell of a lot of death. So much so that there was actually a death of one of the brothers cut from the film because they just thought it was one tragedy too far for an audience to take.
Not just the death, but the entire brother was not in the film.
Yeah, they basically amalgamated two of the brothers into the character Mike because another brother died in the thing. So yeah, I mean,
but I know that he was a younger brother who had brittle bone disease or had issues with his bones. He had broken his arm at one point, and it got to where he just was so filled with pressure because he did wrestle for a little while. But then he just got to him, and then that's when he committed suicide as well.
Now, I would say this is a fantastic drama about family and toxic masculinity and how men back in the day didn't talk about their feelings, with violence being the only way out. I only have two minor issues with the film, and I think it's more because I'm a wrestling fan and that the non-fan wouldn't even notice them. But it's my review, so I'm going to talk about them. First of all, Fritz's mission to have the world title in the family doesn't make sense because the film can't decide how much behind the curtain of the business it really wants to go. In modern day, if you're a wrestling fan, you know all about the booking and the scripting of matches and the stories. And in recent years, it's every wrestling fan knows, of a certain age at least, wrestling is scripted and the wrestlers are playing characters. And who holds the title isn't always about being the best wrestler on the planet. It's who can talk and engage the crowd the most and get the best response out of the audience. And you get very little of that pre-match planning in the film. And Fritz's treatment of everything as real doesn't kind of ring true for me. So, you know, like when one of the brothers is going into a title match, they would have known beforehand whether he was coming out of it with the title or not.
Well, can I just jump in there really quickly? A friend of mine in the US is an amateur wrestler, and he said that the outcome of everything is known apart from title matches. So title matches are like sometimes they can lean one way or the other. But he has said in the past to me that so you get your shot at the title match, and that's when you have to wrestle. That's when you actually have to be the best. But they do mention in the movie, Zac Efron's character does mention it's like if you've got any other job, you're rewarded by being good at your job.
Yeah, they try and explain.
He does
a
a really
bit.
good job of it, I think, as well. Because Natasha was she'd never watched wrestling before, had nothing to do with it, and she understood it. Like she literally asked a question about 5 minutes before that he said that to me, like how is it? It's all fake, isn't it? And then the character goes, "Oh, it's all fake, isn't it?" And he does a really good job of explaining it.
Yeah, and he explains, and it's in seconds as well. He doesn't labor on the point. He gives it this really elegant explanation, and then moves on. And I was like, that's brilliant. That's exactly what you need.
Well, I think as well, like I say, in the 70s, wrestling really stuck to what there's a term to describe wrestling in the inner workings. It's called kayfabe, and that basically means treating everything as real. So, like in the 70s, the bad guys would, even when they were out, not walking around, going to the supermarket, they'd be in character in the town.
Oh wow!
They wouldn't be allowed to travel when they were driving to the next show. The bad guys would have to travel with the bad guys. The good guys would have to travel with the good guys. It maintained the illusion that it was real. And that, so I think that's why it kind of shows you a little bit of it in the film and explains it in that scene quite simply and well. And it's, like you say, the way they explain the film is, well, if you put a good performance in, they realise, okay, you're going to go up, kind of be rated more. So they do. I think it was the director going, well, yes, it's all faked, but I just think Fritz's thing for the title, I'm like, you would definitely know. I mean,
I'm trying to work out how like Ben said, if they actually have to wrestle at that point and the title matches, surely no one would give in. Yeah, you'd have to know who the winner is.
Yeah,
surely.
you would. I guarantee that he would know who the winner is. So I like you say, you want your friends on the independent thing, but I suppose at that level, it's a flip of a coin who wins it on the big night.
Wrestling. I'm just saying. I mean, like there were opportunities for people to move around in that world without things being known. But yeah, you're right. Like there's. That they pass messages to each other through the ref and stuff.
Oh yeah,
well,
the ref's there to basically.
Yeah.
He's a messenger. He's like, watch out! Like he's going to throw you out. He's going to send you out of the ring on the next throw.
Yeah,
stuff like that. So like
they've all got hand signals and everything like that. There's like if they tap someone, they're laying on the floor and they're like both laying there doing a Rocky moment, double knockout, and there's so many subtle.
It's quite
touches.
clever when you notice them.
Yeah,
when you notice them all.
There's a lot of
really
theatre
well
in there as well.
Yeah,
and I don't know how to reinforce, to back up what I just said. Like, I don't know how much of that is in modern wrestling. I don't know if he was talking about wrestling from the 60s or 70s. It was just something that he said to me, and I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. If you've worked that hard and you've got your title shot, do you win based on your prowess, and can you just literally wear the other guy down?
I don't think they'd have an actual no one who's the winner's going to be in match. It could be in smaller indie. Yeah, maybe they do it that way. But I think, like WWE, for example.
Roman Reigns would have definitely lost by now.
Yeah, he's coming up to 3.5 years with the world title at the minute.
Oh, man. I have one question for you. What did you think of Ric Flair?
I thought he was... He is the other problem I have with the film, actually. But he's not in it enough for it to be a big problem.
I was annoyed with him just not doing a great impression.
Oh, and I read an interview with the actor, man, and Ric Flair is one of the most iconic, well-known promos of all time. He wasn't ever one of the biggest wrestlers, but he lived his gimmick basically. He was just drinking, womanizing,
spending money on his outfits.
He is so far in debt that he's still doing promo stuff now, way into his late 70s, early, and because he's got 5 or 6 ex-wives now, and he owes a lot of money. He's advertising an energy drink on AEW at the minute. Yeah, he's one of the most iconic Playboy wrestlers. That's the word I was looking for. He's like a Playboy. That's what he's going for. And I read an interview with the actor Aaron Dean Eisenberg, who plays him, and the interview made me think he was even more of a bad choice for a Flair than he was, because he said, he thought that getting into wrestling shape to be Flair was a lot of work for only a few scenes. I'm sorry, but if you're playing one of the most charismatic, well-known wrestlers of all time, and you decide you don't want to do an impersonation of him because it's not real, Flair is in about 2 scenes in the movie. There's a bit where he comes backstage after the fight, and he's like, "Wow, that's really good, yeah, great," and then walks out and and then there's a promo Now, why couldn't they have got the actual promo? I mean,
Ooh,
come on.
yeah.
Footage
That
from the
would've been so
70s,
good.
if it existed still, one, it wouldn't have cost a lot of money, right? It would have been pretty cheap to get hold of that footage.
Yeah.
Or two, just recreate the exact promo for the match that Flair did. It's absolutely fine to do impersonation of Flair there, because he is a caricature. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
You could have argued that though for like the whole film. Why
Well,
didn't
no.
they use real footage for other moments? That would have looked really out of place
I
for
don't
that
think
it
one
would.
moment.
no, I don't think you would, not for that.
It would have for that one moment. It would have looked really out of place, and then you'd have had an actor playing him in the ring. Unless it wouldn't have worked
Yeah.
unless you'd used that throughout the film at various points.
There's only two things that I really would critique with Ric Flair is the way he did the little dance, which was pretty good. But the one thing I didn't like is his weak ass woo.
Oh, it
I'm
was
like,
terrible.
That was like, come on, you got to give Ric
Yeah.
Flair some respect with that. But aside from that, it was a fine performance. It was fine from him.
But that's but talking of performances, everyone else in the film, holy
Oh,
fuck. We've been saying this
yeah.
for ages. Like, we've been like on the Zac Efron train. We're like, look, at some point he's gonna make a film where he's really, really fucking good and should get an Oscar nomination. And
Yeah.
it won't be a stupid comedy where he takes his shirt off and he's a hot girl time. Well, ironically, he's taking his shirt off and he is quite buff in it, and he's in ridiculous shape in the
Quite
film.
He's in incredible shape.
Yeah,
Fucking
he's
massive, yeah.
Ridiculous.
Quite
He did
buff.
he did that one movie with The Rock. He did the Baywatch movie with The Rock, and now he's trying to like emulate The Rock's build. And he gets close on this movie, man. He is
He's
fucking
huge.
Massive.
And
Oh my
yet,
God.
what I like is he is the most balanced character of it, and like it's such an internal performance. Like, you think in a wrestling film, ironically, and this is what I like, the dichotomy of making a film about wrestling and tragedies. You expect all these guys to be really big personalities, and kind of like Kerry, Jeremy Allen White's character. He is kind of like the really outgoing, and he's like into his drink and his drugs and his women and his fast motorcycles and almost losing his foot. I mean, that
Almost.
fucking.
So
He did lose his foot.
that's one of my critiques of the film.
Yeah.
And I don't think I enjoyed the film as much as you guys potentially did, is because we didn't actually spend as much time with the other brothers to actually get to know and
Yeah.
understand them. We only ever saw the brothers in the vicinity of the family. So we never saw the
Yeah.
brothers with the family. We never saw the brothers individually. So like
That's
even when
true.
they died,
But that's what the film was about.
it's-
Was the
no, but
family.
it wasn't. The film was about Kevin. It was about,
True. Very true.
it was very much everything was from Kevin's point of view. If you'd have seen the family and the fact, like, you got to know each of the other brothers from their point of views, even for like only a few scenes, maybe 20 more minutes extra length of the film, and you'd had those moments, I feel like the impacts of everyone's deaths would have really hit a lot harder than what they did.
I think
Yeah.
it hits
Because, like-
hard because
like-
it just starts
even
cascading
like the
from the
drugs,
first one.
like what you were mentioning, like the drugs and everything like that, and like the motorcycles and everything like that. You don't really.
Yeah, because it's off
That's
screen
never
a lot.
really shown. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It needed to have been.
I don't know.
Sure.
I
I
agree. I
more.
definitely agree with David there. It's definitely shot from Kevin's point of view because I mean he's the one at the end that ends up like having the business and selling the business and doing all that stuff. But like the one important thing that we haven't mentioned is that there is considered to be a curse on the family.
Yeah.
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 And that starts off like from day one, and that curse is what Kevin's trying to like escape.
Well, he even
Like, 'cause
names
when
his kids.
when his
different
kids
name,
come into
doesn't
the
he?
world, yeah, like
That
he
was pretty
tries
sad
to
to see that. That he was
Yeah.
avoiding trying to get his
Like,
kids.
When he was sleeping in the office and stuff like that, because he didn't
Yeah.
want to sleep at home to not bring the curse at
A
home.
fun little bit of background with the curse. It was strictly from his grandmother's side. It was specifically from his grandmother, who he had heard stories where she would trip and hurt herself quite often. And I think either her husband or his dad would joke around, "Oh, she must be cursed. She keeps getting hurt." And so that's kind of where it started. But then when the child died, his older brother first died when he was 5. That's where like the first semblance of that curse really started to take shape with the family. And and part of it also is what's it called? Fritz's character as a wrestler was originally based off of a Nazi wrestling character. So they thought that possibly some of that might have been bad karma for the family, bringing it in.
Yeah,
Like
because he
that.
portrayed a German like Fritz von Erich. Like, that's not actually like their real surname was Atkinson. So yeah,
Yes.
it's,
yeah.
So
but that's
it's
what he
kind
made
of-
his name on. So they kept that as a family name, von Erich, because that's where the money came from.
Yeah, and so they
Right.
thought that there was a kind of amalgamation of two reasons that the family was kind of in a way cursed because of all that. I have to say, one scene that I think was a really interesting choice, and apparently it was one of the toughest scenes to keep in the movie for the director, it was of Carrie kind of visualizing what his afterlife would be, walking and on 2 feet and then going on the boat to seeing his brothers. That whole scene apparently was something that was argued about. Well, I wouldn't say argued, but the director said there was a lot of back and forth with that scene.
I can see why, because some people absolutely hate that scene and it kind of takes them out of the movie a little bit. I just thought it was just like a capper to the film. I think it kind of when you've had so much like horrific shit going on to Kevin's character for so much of the film, I think you kind of needed
some levity.
I mean, it's wish fulfillment. Yeah, you needed a little bit of that.
Yeah,
it was
that moment for me was that moment and the very end moment with his 2 boys was the most emotional the film got for me.
Definitely.
Really?
Yeah. The moment with the brothers when they were all reunited in the afterlife.
Dude, I don't know. I think watching the toll it took on the mother was like, I was man, that is
more of a attorney, yeah.
Like
that wasn't an emotional thing for me. That was more of a good.
I felt for her because she was a typical like silenced like wife, like browbeaten wife of that time, and like she wasn't even like really didn't allow herself to grieve at all. And it just like you can just see
at the end of the film, her one kind of subtle act of like, I'm not taking this shit anymore.
Defiance.
It's defiance. Is he's like, where's my dinner? He's like, I'm doing painting. Get your own dinner. And that's basically.
You feel like that's where she branched off and was just like just broke away from him and was just like, you know what, like you're done. Like I'm out of this. But
what's funny is in some reviews I saw that wasn't defiance. That was just her allowing herself to express emotion.
Okay.
And then in a way
that in itself is defiance, I suppose, from what she's had to.
True, very true.
That is the biggest sort of dichotomy with this film is that you expect wrestlers to be big, outwardly going, but then in their personal lives they are so shuttered and so insular. I mean, I think that's why Efron maybe didn't get an award in it, because a lot of this, it's very similar to. I'm trying to think what was the other performance. There's a film I saw last year, and the actor was superb in it, but so much of the performance was internal. And Oppenheimer, that's it. Although he's going to absolutely smash it, isn't he? But you know, when you watch Oppenheimer, I mean, he's already won a BAFTA, Cillian Murphy, definitely odds on favourite. But in that film, it's not the typical Oscar performance because he doesn't have the big shouty scenes, he doesn't have the big monologues. Right. It's all just the realization of what he's done on his face, and that's what Zac Efron does in this film. The toll of losing all brother after brother after brother on his face, and just and he plays such a nice guy throughout it. Like, when Kerry comes in and basically takes his spot and he's like, that's fine. I want to support you, brother. And when David like helps him out because he goes in the ring and he's a bit shit on the mic and David comes in and saves him and then David gets pushed ahead of him. Like McCallum, he says, he goes, jumps him. You're my favourite, then it's you, but the rankings can always change. And the fact he treats his sons like it's a wrestling, like a ranking, is horrific, man. He's a brilliant character in it. I mean, I think in another year, Efron should have been up for Best Actor. McCallany and Jeremy Allen White could have both been up for Best Supporting Actor in it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, gentlemen, I believe that brings us to the end of the podcast. And that's all the time we have for you on this week's episode of We Needed Roads. And remember, if you like what you hear, you can give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. You can follow me on Twitter at Needed Roads, where I tweet furiously daily. You can follow David on Instagram at We Needed Roads, where you get a more serene occasional post when a new episode comes out. Ben doesn't do socials because technically he's on the run from the law in multiple countries. And Jose, where can people find a very good, reasonably priced photographer in the Florida area?
Yes, if you want to find me on Instagram, I am at Jose Lopez Photos. It's pretty straightforward, and you can find links on there to contact me.
Well, there you go. We can find us all except Ben because he's on the run. And
I'm not actually on the run.
Look, that's the bit, and we're going with it.
Please keep that in. Please.
You do look like you like to cook, like a bit of meth on the meantime.
Fucking
shut up. He's obsessed with the anime cooking show.
It's funny. No one knows what you look like. They'll just make a picture now.
I know. He's not missing teeth, is he?
Like all the supporting actors from Breaking Bad. And I've just watched American Fiction, man, and that guy made up a character that was like on the run, and now all of a sudden I'm going to be like dropped into that category. I'm really concerned now.
He's got long curly hair. That's
winding up. Anyway, guys, I'd like to thank my co-hosts for joining me here today, David.
Hello, thank you. I'm thanking you as well, Neil. Thank you.
Okay.
I got scared. I didn't know what to say.
As always, I'd like to thank Ben.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a blast as usual.
Jose.
Cheers, everyone. It's been a blast.
And we'll see you next time.
We needed roads.